happy Wednesday. Sending a big cheers from me to you right here in Austin, Texas. Welcome. I'm so excited that you're joining us today because boy, oh boy, do we have a really fun talk ahead. If you are new here, welcome. We're a super fun group. If you haven't already, drop on over in the chat where you're joining us from and maybe even what is in your cup this morning, tonight, whatever time it is, wherever you are, what is in your cup? Let us know where you're coming in from so that we can all meet each other and say hello. If you're new here, this is a weekly conversation where we come together with interesting humans every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, where we talk to interesting founders and CEOs and startup executives and teachers and professors and just all around interesting humans who help us be better in our work lives, brand ourselves like the experts and leaders that we are, and all in all, show up ready to tackle the world. And I'm really excited about today's guest because it's been a long time in the making. If, like me, you are a fan of LinkedIn Learning, then you have definitely seen her face before because she is one of the top LinkedIn Learning instructors. But Tatiana is so much more than that. As always, hopefully you've given her a little bit of a Google stalk before this talk so you can see all the interesting things that she is doing and is a part of. She has an amazing weekly newsletter called Stronger. She also does that in audio form. She is a senior lecturer at Indiana University. And oh, by the way, she's also a CEO and entrepreneur when it comes to fitness. So it's just, she's doing all the things. So I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with her. So please help me in welcoming Tatiana.
I'm blushing.
My goodness.
Good to see you.
You have quite a list of things that you accomplished and that you do on a day-to-day basis.
Well, first of all, you're in Austin, Texas. I thought you were in New York.
I was in New York, but we made a pandemic move down to Austin, Texas. So it's our new home.
Oh my goodness. And it looks like you have a lot more space than you did in New York. You went for the real estate, right?
Exactly. We have a lot less snow and we have a lot more room. So
fantastic. Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, I'm drinking water and product placement. This is my blue and white Greek colors, Ethos Fitness, Ethos Cycling, but it's a muggy, rainy day. I'm in Indianapolis in a hotel room. This is not my home. It would be a lot cozier, but Shelby helped me figure out the lighting and the placing. So thank you so much for having me, Kim.
I'm so excited for our conversation today because as I said, when introducing you, you are doing a lot of things. Like normally when I talk to people, it's like, okay, they founded a company and, 24/7, they're the founder of the company. That's what they do. Or, talk to someone, they are an expert in this one thing. Our mutual friend, Gemma Lee Roberts. Okay, she's a clinical psychologist. This is what she's doing. But you are doing multiple things, which to me is in and of itself really rare.
But they're in the same continuum. I argue that performance enhancement or living better, being better at what we do, could come in from an educational standpoint, a physical and mental standpoint. If I can help and coach someone be better in their speaking, and if I can help and coach someone be better in the way that they move and lift and live, to me, it's performance improvement. It's the same spectrum. So I don't apologize for saying, oh, I'm all over the place. In my mind, it's very connected and it helps us be better at what we do, be stronger and be just more effective, leveling up in everything. So it's really part of who I am. And the whole fitness business came later in life where because of a life event when I was much younger, when I was 12, I had back surgery. They said, you'll never be able to be very active. And I said, you know what? You don't know me. I don't think so. And I was able to live a life that was very active, athletically, competitively. And I want to bring that exercise, I believe, is transformational and bring it to people. So we have a small fitness boutique in Bloomington, Indiana. That's kind of where that comes from. But I get a lot of energy from that. So I love it.
I love your kind of through line of it's really about being stronger in the workplace, physically, mentally. Obviously, mindset is a huge portion of what you do in communication. I'm
Mhm.
curious, were you always kind of this ethos of I'm going to get better, or did you have a period maybe in your early 20s or as you enter the workforce where like having a conversation with your boss was really intimidating, or
Mm.
going after that goal was really scary, or were you kind of
Yeah.
always that like go-getter type person?
I consider myself kind of an underdog. I was not supposed to be where I was. I come from a culture that's socially very power distance. So in Greece, where you live and what your mom and dad do and what your family name is will determine the direction that your life will go into. So I never came from a lot, and I knew I had to create what I have. And in a way, even though it was really hard after high school to come to the United States to study, it was also a wonderful growth opportunity to learn new things and really be in a place where you're not as judged as much. I think for international students, the US is a lot more welcoming. And as also a female, I was able to accomplish more than I would have in those days in the mid 80s in Greece, where I came from. I can go back now; it's fantastic, but I don't, and it's probably different opportunities for younger women. But in the mid 80s, it was a painful thing, but a good thing to move here. So. In a way, I've sort of been a learned optimist because of situations and life events. I didn't really have another option. There was no backup plan, Kim. It's this or nothing better. So I'm going to make it happen. I have to make it happen.
And as you think about things like hard conversations or things that typically most people shy away from, and
Yeah.
what I think is so interesting is you kind of dive into all the subjects that me personally like still make me squirm, and I've
Yeah.
been an entrepreneur for 10 years and it still makes me squirm.
Yeah. Yeah. The latest newsletter that I wrote was about kind of building the courage to have a conversation that is uncomfortable. But when we do things like that, and we don't do them, I would say, extemporaneously. I wouldn't say, Kim, let's just talk about the fact that you've ignored me for the last year. I would not say that to a friend. If I want to bring something up and it matters, I'm going to need to be thoughtful. I need to think of what mindset you're in. I need to think of what the timing is. Is it right? I need to think of how I will communicate what I say. How do I ask for what I want? How can I be empathetic about what you're thinking? So those courageous conversations, I really do think discomfort brings enhancement in performance. You'll get better if you push yourself to be uncomfortable to a point. And somehow I seek these things out or they happen. But I do think you can become stronger because of that. I know you and Gemma have talked about resilience is like a muscle. To me, it's a threshold to where you become, if you spend time in the discomfort, you become stronger to manage it and do it better. So I'm not saying just go around and have tough conversations with everyone, but don't shy away from them because you're not going to build that skill.
Well, and I think it's one of the things that's why I think the reason we're talking about this at this poignant time is that some of us are going back to work or this hybrid model. Maybe you're going in some days a week and working from home the other days of the week, or just communicating. Maybe you don't have that face-to-face contact that you once had. And how do you have those conversations in this new dynamic? Maybe you're not seeing somebody face-to-face, or maybe you're not coming together every day. Can you have these hard conversations over Zoom?
I'd say better over Zoom than over an email, and better over an email than over text or chat. But it's worth it if I'm going to go to my boss or chair of our department and say, look, I wonder about this. It's a tough conversation, and in academics, it happens a lot with promotion and opportunities and credits and all of this, and there's bargaining that has to happen. I would rather have that conversation face to face, but I owe it to her to say, look, I want to talk about this. When is a good time? So sending a preface email or even a message or a text and letting the other person know what it is you want to discuss. If it's a tough topic, you want to find the right time to do it. The other piece about going back to work, you and I know you've discussed this a lot, we need to communicate our brand, and we have to communicate what it is that we're working on. What are the wins that we have? I wrote a newsletter about bragging. If we're not going to do it, who's going to do it for us? If you are not your number one advocate, who will communicate that for you? We have to be the communicators for these situations, and especially because work is more hybrid, don't feel that your work will be discovered just and celebrated. You have to advocate without being pushy, but just being informative. And it's okay to say, by the way, this happened. I just thought you might know. By the way, I was with Kim on her LinkedIn, and I talked about communication and talked about our university. You may want to look at it. So I may do that.
I would like it. I think it's such a good point to really focus on what you can do, because we can't control other people. So that's just a lost cause. But if we can't control other people, what can we personally do? And so I love this point from Jeff, really thinking about, okay, what mental exercises can we think about before kind of doing these hard things?
I spend a lot of time doing exercise because it's my thing. I get my tension out. I think through my day. I talk to myself in ways that I need to talk to myself when the going gets tough. So it's a way, it's like preparatory training. Athletes do this all the time. They put themselves in practice or simulation situations, and it's difficult. Having a courageous conversation, you should role play it with someone you trust that will give you feedback. Mental exercises, it's hard to replicate them, Jeffrey. It's better to say, let me ask for something I don't think I'm going to get, and look at what is the self-talk that I do to myself when I get rejected. Many times we're afraid to have courageous conversations or ask for things we're not going to get, or make crazy asks, or try something different because we don't like to fail. But otherwise, we're not going to grow if we don't practice this. So when we fail or slip or make a gaffe, English is not my first language. You would not believe all the stupid things I've said in public. And sometimes I still do. I asked for a rubber in English class W131 by a frat guy behind me. I needed an eraser. I learned British English. Everyone in the class was laughing, and I was mortified. I didn't do it again, but it didn't break me. I didn't stop going to that class. So what I'm saying is, put yourself, Jeffrey, in the situations, and what do you tell yourself after something like that happens to build your strength and keep going. And also
and
practice, like what could possibly go wrong. Like let's be prepared, right?
Well, and I think it's so much, at least I'll speak for me, like so much of the self-talk is talking myself out of doing things. Oh, you can't start working on your fitness. You can't run that marathon. You can't, the person talking the things out of it's me. I'm the one doing it to myself, which is also part of the problem.
Yeah. And you have to be your number one coach. If you don't do it, the Tour de France is happening next month. Those coaches are in the ear of the cyclist saying, you got this. Okay, here's what's coming up next. Here's how we're going to tackle it. You need water. You need to do that for yourself, because I don't see people lining up to do it for me. Obviously, I have my advisory board and people that have my back. And I just posted on LinkedIn a Harvard Business Review article that talks about the power of the people around you that help you be more resilient. It's very important, but you have to be your number one fan and coach in the beginning. I missed the point that our learner just dropped in, so maybe you can repeat it for me.
recognizing the stories we tell ourselves is a significant part of hard conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So true, Jen.
Yeah,
and I love
to
that point in your latest Harvard Business Review, which, by the way, everyone should read this latest article that Tatiana wrote. But what I thought was so interesting in
I
the
posted
article,
it. I didn't write it.
Oh, posted it.
Yes.
What I thought was so interesting about it was the fact that they talk about really just even having support, even if it doesn't even matter what people say. I think in the article, they were talking about this guy's kids. And he was a doctor, and they were like, you're doing such great work by going into the hospital every day. And it almost didn't even matter what the kids were saying, just that you had people that were kind of rooting you on. It's something that I fundamentally believe in. And that's why I crave this meeting pretty much every single week, because you're building a community that's kind of looking out for each other. And if you aren't accountable to anyone, you are accountable to no one, and very little will get done that way.
And when, for the ones of us that have kids that see it, they see you in a different lens. It's so interesting to have that perspective, and I think it's just remarkable to see how other people view you and what they would say to you. Absolutely.
Well, and I love this point by Jeff too, really talking about like coach in my pocket, because you really do need, at least I've found that most people really do need one, sometimes more than one. I would even say coaches in my pocket, depending on what you're trying to work on or what you're trying to do. It can be multiple people.
Yeah. People who know you, people that can say, hey, you're going down the rabbit hole of negativity, or do you remember, are you kidding me? You're the person that did this, or you're being too hard on yourself, or you're being a little too, full of yourself. Back it away. So you do need that, and you need them in different parts of your life. I really believe it. But again, that positive self-talk and being able to take yourself there, and what Jeffrey said, what mental exercises. I teach cycling classes. I know you probably are familiar with Peloton and sort of the motivational aspect of accomplishing something, putting down a 30-second interval that is better than the two of the ones before, and being able to take people there or do it yourself is out of this world amazing, because then you know that if you physically can accomplish something like this, you're going to kick ass out there and take numbers because you're stronger in that way. So we have to find opportunities to keep the engine running in that way, and it's not disconnected. Mental and physical are together in one. That's kind of where that comes when you said, why do you do a fitness and you teach in classes? I would argue I teach people how to speak, and I do a presentation every time I get on the bike or I get in front of a class. It is, and by the way, it's a little more complicated too. So
I'm curious, when you think about internal communication, not necessarily, well, some people would interpret internal communication as like with your team, if you work at an agency or something like that, but sometimes internal communication can be you to yourself, physically internal conversation. What do you think are some of the biggest pitfalls or things that people get wrong that you've seen either in your studies or maybe individuals that you've worked with?
The inability to see what went well first, or the inability to say, I'm good at this and this and this. We always look for the negative. So if you've ever read evaluations, or if you watch your own video and like, oh my gosh, that sounds horrible. We focus on the negative as much, but I think the more that we do it and the more we push ourselves to be vulnerable in this way and try to coach ourselves, we have to force ourselves to say, I'm going to say the 4 great things that happened today and the one thing I need to continue to work on, instead of this was a disaster and I'm not even going to give energy to these other 4 things. What good does that do? Would you ever do that for your kid or your loved one? Probably not. So why do it for yourself? So I would say a higher ratio of positive to constructive all the time. And just sometimes it's good enough. Forget about perfect. That's the it's sort of an evil situation at times. It's impossible to accomplish. Good enough is what fits in some cases, in many cases, and just settle for that.
Well, and I think, I have my own theories, but obviously I sort of hinted at it at the beginning of the hour, but, you do have one of the most popular LinkedIn learning courses, of the year. And I think that the reason, my theory of why that is I feel that the way you teach and the way you kind of coach and lecture to me, it is relatable. And there are some people that you learn from that maybe it's more aspirational, or it seems like I either watch those learnings or watch those lectures and I feel like it doesn't apply to me. Like they're teaching kind of above whereas I feel like, the way and the style that you teach does feel relatable, and it does feel like something that I can take away and use. And I'm curious, are you conscious of that, or is that just kind of something that comes naturally to you?
I had to lately put my dossier together for promotion, and we have to write a learning statement. Like, what is it that fuels and influences your philosophy of teaching? And there's a lot of theory around the work around experiential learning. For me, when I teach a concept, I have to help you see it apply, and then you can do it. And then you can see someone else do it and show me what they did well or not, and then put it together yourself. Does that make sense? It's the Bloom's taxonomy, and you can look that up anywhere else. And the ones of us that get that can design better LinkedIn courses, because it's not just regurgitating theory. It's let's see it in action. Now you see it in action, analyze it. Now put it together yourself. So if you can grow to that, and when you say it's relatable, maybe because I approach it more from that standpoint, and I believe in the power of experiential learning, doing it and learning it, and I happen to teach communication, that all comes together. And, I'm pretty much who I am, and thanks for your compliments, but I feel the same for you. I think authenticity speaks a lot. People can see through it and connect to it, or just say, nah, not for me.
Not for me. I'm curious. I mean, it's a really hard choice, and I know there's kind of no right answer, but I'm curious. Obviously, you teach, well, before the pandemic, in person, at the university, but then you also have you have millions of students across the world via LinkedIn Learning. I'm curious, what are the pros and cons that you see, the future of education, because you are able to not only serve people, in the town you live in, but you're also able to serve a worldwide audience, which is pretty spectacular.
It's amazing on the face-to-face in the classroom with our MBA students. I teach in our MBA program in the fall, and I'm excited. We've got so many of them coming in from all around the world. And it's so nice to get to know them as people, because speaking, unlike quantitative analysis, statistics, accounting, and economics, is a difficult thing to get up and get the gumption to do. We have so many students that are coming from other parts of the world, and somehow I become the role model because I'm also not an English speaker. But understanding where they're coming from and how can I help coach them to that level that will get attention in a positive way. But I could possibly get to know people virtually as well. We, by the way, have a very good online, I would say not very good, top ranked online MBA program, our Kelly Direct program. But again, we get together in the virtual communities and virtual world, and we're starting for us to do these LinkedIn Lives. I'm thinking of doing Q&A session for my courses on LinkedIn Live, just to interact with people. So I think the more relational we are, and we get to know people and allow them opportunities to take what they learn and apply it. I know, like you, there's nothing more rewarding than getting a note from a learner that says, I did this and it made a huge difference in how I was perceived, or the raise that I got, or the praise that I got. That to me is purposeful work, and I don't want anything else.
Well, and I think it's purposeful work, and also, kind of going off one of the questions here, it's also inspirational work. To me, it's also what helps me like jump out of bed every morning. It's like, yes, like that sort of, so I'm curious for you, like where you find your inspiration and kind of gumption from.
That's a complicated, Giacomo, thanks for your question. I sort of, I life, the passion I have for life, the interest I have for life. My dad died when he was 39. I was 7. And when I turned 39, I decided I want to live every year of my life for the life he didn't get to. And being inspired by the people that have walked the path that you've walked before and honoring your past. For me, I mean, I'm getting philosophical. I come from the land of philosophy, but living every day to honor the people that are not there to appreciate it and have it and be your best self. I don't know where, it's not alcohol or any other substance that we're not supposed to have. Is just a passion for life. And it gets fed by that, I'm going to work out, I'm going to feel good, I'm going to eat well, try to take care of myself, see my kids succeed, and continue with this. And it's sort of rejuvenates me. It's not an elixir. Sorry, Giacomo, I can't bottle it, but I encourage you to find it.
No, you can't bottle it. I wish you could.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be the first one in line to buy some for sure. When you think about, one thing that I tend to always have questions about it, and by the way, anyone can ask questions. You can just drop them in the chat. But when I will ask the questions that I like, which are mine. But one of the things I always think about is how communication style differs, or does it differ in your opinion, when you're talking about corporate versus, startup, whether you're the founder, you're starting your own business. Are the communication styles different, or do you need different skills, in one camp versus the other?
Sure. I would say common values, even if you have a team, there's a team of 10 of us in my small little operation. I have to build something that creates a why for them as well, for them to be motivated to do what they do, because it's not for how much they get paid per class to teach, but for them to say, creating quality of life for people in our community is so powerful, and sharing the praise and sharing what they hear. What's in it for them is important. I don't see that being different in corporate, because in corporate, there's values and beliefs and objectives that we're trying to accomplish that hopefully have a strong purpose somehow. And if we can align our values and you are communicating to that, the so what, or finding a so what. I'm sure there's many mundane things that we have to do and get people to all rally around. But if finding the strong so what to what we ask people to do is key, and you cannot do that if you don't have trust. People don't trust you and know you. And if you don't know them, it's difficult for people to follow you, Kim. You know that if you're not on a personal level with them, they don't feel as they're connected with you.
Yeah, I think connection plays a huge role in not only leadership, but also just going back to your point about authenticity. I think, it really just that communication, the clear kind of here's our North Star, here's where we're going. Yeah. I think that kind of getting everybody on board is huge.
So if you were to say, what's the one style, I would say it has to be relational. Because at times you have to be like, we can't do this. We need to, you have to be the police chief at times, but they know that there is a connection to a bigger purpose behind that. You're not going to lose trust if you become the bad cop and if you put your foot down on something. You have to, for me, being relational and basing your communication on that, knowing that, hey, Kim, how's it going? You moved. That's a great place that you have. It sets the stage for me to start like that and talking to you versus, hey, thanks for having me. What do you want to talk about? Right?
Right.
And I better
Totally.
remember that you've moved to Austin. How's it going? Next time we talk, I'm not trying to be manipulative, but again, being mindful and in the moment that I make that connection with you, it makes things so much easier in the long run. And I don't care if it's face to face or if it's on an email or if it's on a phone. You and I know that once you have relationships, you just pick up the phone and things happen because you've invested in those relationships. And it's that communication, I believe.
It's huge. Oh, here's a question. A more personal question. What have you done
Mm,
when you lost the
lost.
passion? Hmm.
Oh, um, remember we talked about, Elda, thank you for your questions. We talk about the people in your life that help lift you and help give you perspective. I really believe that when you feel that burnout, that fatigue, that loss in hope, that there are those people that you will reach out to and you can feed on their energy, their advice, their feedback. I'm in a hotel room because our son um, is in the hospital. I didn't want to miss the chance to connect with you, Kim. And he's not, it was much worse a couple of weeks ago. He had a crazy mononucleosis that has triggered all these other things. I really, there was not much passion. You didn't see this, Tatiana, Elda, at this point. I was very subdued and pretty focused on just the next hour. Uh, I reached out to several people in my life, my family, and looked for energy, I would say, and looked for it's going to be okay type of coaching that I needed to hear because I couldn't even say that to myself. So at the time, I was even, Kim, I was in Greece taking care of my mom, and I had to fly back like this. It was very stressful. And I really, we talk about resilience. It's serendipitous that that's the topic that I do a lot of work around. But you have to have, I would say, a big engine to be able to carry that. And your revs would be low. You're running at a low energy level, and then you can pick up again. But you don't want to. You can't afford to shut it down. And there are people that can help build you up, Elna. I hope that answers your question.
Well, and I would just like add on to that. I think that's why I am always so, getting on my soapbox about community, and whether that's
Mm,
friends, whether that's family, whether that's colleagues, whether that's coworkers. I don't, it could be the man at the bodega that you see
yeah,
every morning for your coffee. I don't care who it is, but you need other humans
yeah,
in your life
yeah,
that are regularly part of your circle, basically, to fill your cup, because
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't be in charge of filling it all the time.
yeah. And there are times, and some of us need, not me, but there are people that need alone time and quiet time to fill their cup and regroup and find that energy, and they need that quiet time, and it's not this all the time. It's good to recognize and do the things that fill your cup. For me, I get energy by teaching a fitness class or being in it. Others would be like, you crazy. No, I wouldn't go by it. I want to go on a walk on my own and just not even put any music in my ears. That's how I fill up. That's great. Just do what it is that does revitalize that energy, because we cannot afford to be burning out. We have to take good care of ourselves.
No, it's true. And I'm thankful that you were able to get back here to the US and be with
Oh,
your son. That's like
yeah,
huge.
yeah,
As we kind of talked about offline, I'm just like thankful that you're even showing up today and had the energy for that, because I know that it's a very, to your point, stressful, draining time. So
you know,
again, thank you for
I
that.
oh, you of course I get, if it was more serious, you probably would have heard. But I get energy from him. He's going through a hard time. He missed his high school graduation, and he says to me, "Mom, it's going to be okay." I mean, what the heck? He wrote an email yesterday to his guidance counselor. He may, saying, "I may not be going to college in the fall." I'm like, "No, don't say that." But he's so mature about it. I wouldn't be like that at 17. I would have just fallen apart. But sometimes when we deal with adversity earlier on in our lives, we become more able to deal with adversity later on. And as we go, we gain the skills and we push our threshold, as I said, to be more resilient. All right, let's not talk
Absolutely.
about that anymore.
Well, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned email, because I was listening to a podcast that you did a couple months ago, and you were talking about communication styles, and you were talking about emails, and you were also talking about the generational communication styles, and that you have students that maybe are used to texting or Snapchat or TikTok or God knows what it is. And you really have to teach them how to use email, because when they eventually get in the workforce, that is what most workforces use is email. And so I'm curious, is that something that you're seeing more of, less of? And also, I have a theory, because some people think it's just young people. I know a lot of older adults that also do not, that I'll get texts from, and I'm thinking, you're texting me. This is crazy. So I'm curious if you've seen that sort of like devolve, I guess, over the last couple of years.
I don't know, and I haven't seen any studies on generational differences. I just think we get better at what we practice. And if we do a lot of this and texting and Snapchatting and short to the point sentences, it's difficult for us to sit down and say, hey, Kim, how's it going? How's life for you? Have you thought about this? I wanted to talk about this. If we keep doing this, we don't have that formula, or maybe we need to learn it. I have a course on communicating with diplomacy and tact. To get through sticky situations, you can't just sit in an office and say, I don't like this. And I've had that before. And I'll stop and go, okay, I'm your communications professor. I need to pause right now, because if I don't make this a learning moment, I have failed you. I need to help you understand how to do this differently. It's a learning moment. So yes, is it learnable? Absolutely. Do people have lower skill in it? I think it's because they don't practice it as much. So for our young ones that go into the work world of academics, we need to require that they communicate. I, in my syllabus, say, we prepare you for the workplace, and I want you to be able to communicate professionally. Number one, if I'm going to read and respond to messages in 24 hours, I expect you to do the same first. Number two, my name is not Hey, and I don't respond to that. Number three, you shouldn't have misspellings or anything that looks. I remember even several years ago, I had a student who Palm Pilots, or it was Blackberries at the time. Don't send, even if you send it from your BlackBerry or your phone, take that off, so I don't know that you shot it at 11:30 at night asking me for an extension on your paper. Try to manage your brand as you do that. It doesn't matter if you're standing and speaking, or if you're on the phone, or if you're writing, you're managing and you're communicating your brand.
Well, and so much of your brand also builds your reputation. That's another thing that I always try to tell people, is that most people don't realize that the way you are every single day building a reputation, and you carry that reputation with you. And the kind of the visual example that I give people all the time is a bowl of water. And a bowl of water is crystal clear, and it only takes a few, if you have food coloring and you were to drop it in the bowl of water, it gets murky very quickly. And that person, I don't want to say you can always clean up the water, of course, but it takes a lot more effort to clean the water than it did to put the food coloring in the water in the first place. So you might not think it's a big deal to grab your phone at 11:30 at night, sent from my BlackBerry, shoot it over to my professor. But every single time you do that, it's food coloring in the water. And before you know it, that person's view of you is, oh, that person's last minute. Oh, that person's not really reliable. And then when somebody asks you, what do you think of Jeff? What do you think of Kelly? What do you think of whatever? They've branded themselves to you as someone who's last minute, not careful with their work, et cetera. And so most people don't realize that every single day with every single action, you're building your reputation.
Yeah. Or Kim, back to the same topic is you run a company, you keep sending those messages at 12 midnight when people are putting their kids to sleep and not being considerate. You want to get it off your to-do list. You can time it so it goes out the next morning versus just there, because then you set the expectation that I'm working 24/7 and that's what I expect from you. I don't know if that's the image you want to set, or if I know Kim never reads email, or if it's easier for me to compartmentalize and stay on the Slack channel, if that's what we've decided, I better do that and not send you a text. So I need to, as a leader, as the lead, the initiator of the communication, need to be mindful of that. I
Absolutely.
think when I was talking about communication style in what you listened to on that podcast is just also, it's not what your favorite style or medium is what is going to, where is the win-win and what does your audience need? It's always about your audience and their needs.
Well, and I always tell people, every single person that you work with, whether that's your coworker, whether that's a client, whether that's your co-founder, whoever, you should have individual communication meetings at the very beginning of the relationship with every single one of those people, because exactly what you said, I have people who, I met a girl this weekend for brunch and she said, most people think as a 35-year-old, I should love texting. She's like, I actually hate it. I lose messages all the time. I tell people to email me. Now, most people would say, oh, she's a young person, she must love texting. And she's like, I don't love texting.
Great
and so
example.
I always encourage people, whoever it is in your life. I've had other people who say, you know what, Kim, I'm a phone person. I would rather you pick up the phone and call me for 5 minutes than send 17 emails back and forth. So you really have to communicate. It's not a one size fits all. It's not even a generational one size fits all. Oh, this is a young person, so they're going to love texting. Oh, this is an old person, they're probably going to love the phone. Every single person is different.
Yeah. And your preference is not probably what will be their best option. You need to flex your style.
Exactly. And I always say, try to meet in the middle. So that's something that you can work out on one of those calls, because if this person says, well, I'm more of a phone person, and you say, well, I'm definitely more of an email person because it helps me, keep track of what's being said, meet in the middle and say, okay, well, we can have phone calls, but what I'll do is follow up with an email saying, here's the 3 points we discussed, here's the 2 takeaways, that you can kind of combine styles to work better with the people that you're surrounded by.
The same I say, when you do a presentation, you can tell the story and make your pitch. You better have an executive summary they're going to take and leave with, not your slides. Summarize it on one page so the main points are with them and they don't get the 54 slide deck that you share. That's wasting paper.
Wasting paper, and nobody looks at it again anyways. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, agreed.
I'm curious, for those of us who are super kind of interested in, the way in which you're able to accomplish all of these different sectors and factors that you're working on, kind of like the behind the curtain, what rituals or what do you practice in terms of are you calendar blocking? Do you have a virtual assistant? How are you able to run this company and be a senior lecturer and do these LinkedIn learning courses? What are some of the kind of tips and tricks behind the scenes that allow you to do all of these different things?
Sure. Well, first, I would say at the core of all this is an amazing life partner. My husband, Jack, we will have been married for 28 years at the end of this month. Crazy, right?
Congratulations.
I do think that in order to live your best life, it's so important to invest in a relationship with the person that is your rock. And without his support, I wouldn't be able to do all this, because he believes in that this feeds me and this is important for me, but we have a good balance. So at the core, number one, relationship there. The rest are tactical. The rest are seasonal. I'm writing 2 LinkedIn courses, but I don't teach in the summer. when things rev up in the fall, I'm not going to be as involved in LinkedIn, or I may use some help or a virtual assistant to do some other projects, or I personally don't watch as many shows or TV. I use that time. I prefer, for me, my me time is working out. I love to be with other people, so I have my running group and my cycling group and my swimming group, because I get my social time through that. But tactically, I write and journal a lot of things. I post-it notes everywhere. I make lists. Paula Rizzo, you've seen her classes. I love the fact that we have list-making classes on LinkedIn, and I'm the geek that watch them all. But just trying to be organized, compartmentalize, prioritize. And if you think about it, it's not that many buckets, but it's buckets that feed into everything that I do. I say lots of no's to things that don't fit where I want to be going or don't align with my purpose.
Okay, we have to dig in that because I'm terrible at saying no. What is like your go-to? Do you have like a canned go-to no? Or are you good at saying like that?
Thank you so much for thinking. Yeah, I really appreciate. Thanks so much for thinking of me. I don't have the bandwidth to be able to do that. Maybe Kim would be a good person to talk to. Not that I would, but have resources. Have you thought of this? Or possibly is it another direction to do? Give an alternative, or here's a list to the course, or if you want to. Set a lot of times with students, a lot of times they'll say, can I meet up outside of office hours? Can I meet up with you? And I'll say, send me your questions and I'll send you I am a queen of voice. What is it called?
Voice memos.
Voice memos. And now on LinkedIn, you can respond to private messages with an audio. I'm so much faster in doing that. We didn't have typing in high school, so I'll admit I'm a regular typer. I didn't take a class, and I'm not as fast as typing as I am in speaking. So I just use those hacks to do that. And there's just, if you look around my workspace, there's graphs and plans, but again, I know my priorities. During the academic year, I need to focus more on the students that are paying Lady Gaga price seats to be sitting in those seats. They are. Lady Gaga concert prices every time they come to class. We need to deliver because their parents and their companies or whoever may be paying for that. So that's top priority. Everything else is out on the side, and I usually function in that way, if that makes sense.
No, that definitely does. And, really prioritizing is a huge, huge factor in getting it all done, for sure.
Absolutely.
I love these speed round questions we're about to do, because I feel like it's my ultimate cheat sheet to climb into your brain and figure out what's working for you. But what is something that you have started either using lately or doing lately that you love, that's just working super well for you?
The Post-it note thing I've done for a long time, I would say. Are you talking about an app or a thing that I would say?
It could be anything. It could be, lately I've started meditating in the morning. Lately I've started to, do more Post-it note sessions every week. Or I downloaded this new app, or I started reading this new newsletter. Or,
Sure.
I have little obsessions that I kind of get stuck on things that I'm like, oh, I tried this new thing and I really love it.
So because I don't, on a weekly basis, we have one TV in the house and it's downstairs. It's not a big part of that. I have sort of my go-to, I want to watch a show. I'll watch the whole show so I don't fall behind on what it is. And lately I binge watched in my trip I downloaded from Apple TV, the morning show. I don't know if you've seen it advertised, and watched the whole first season. Such good distraction. I do think I would say a hack would be is if you're busy enough or emotionally you're overcome with things that are keeping your mind, find something that is total brain candy. I'm not saying that show is, because it's an incredibly important message and absolute really good acting. So I did that in my trip. And I find sort of little binges that I do that are healthy ones. or I may try to eat or drink something different for a week, or do it specifically, or focus on doing a yoga class I've started with my dear friend Mindy every Sunday. It's called Rebalance. So it's resetting, rebalancing, and it happens online. You wouldn't believe that people attend more if they don't have to go somewhere and be somewhere. So adding some more of these things that are ability to more mind, or I would say more self-care and more fun things, because I do push pretty hard. I would say I'm known to do that. Yeah.
I feel like those are really good. And it's funny you mentioned Post-its, because Jen, who's here today, is like the queen of Post-its. And she's kind of rubbed off on me with the Post-its and the Post-it planning. And so now I've also gotten into the Post-its as well.
I get excited when they come up with new colors. My trash bin next to my office is packed with that, because if I don't put it down, it's going to go away. And that's how it works. Yeah, right.
It's gone.
Yeah.
I love it. So it sounds like you're kind of constantly like learning and curious about new things. So what is on your list of the next thing that you're hoping to learn, whether it's like, a new style of yoga or a language, or I don't even know what?
StreamYard, what we're on right now, it's been my new thing to learn, because next Thursday we had to move a live from tomorrow to next week. I'm a little terrified with all the complexity, and I can juggle enough, but it's beyond me. But I am going to try it, and I've been doing little tutorials and learning that. I'm also starting to teach a new fitness class that's called Reboot, that we've designed. It's sort of functional mobility, stretching, and strength training. I like being in this. I like putting myself in the shoes of a learner, of having to be uncomfortable a little and learn a new thing and then perform it. Not just, if you're going to learn a new language, go outside and try to navigate the country that you're in. So just doing that, those are little things. My son also is going to leave for college. We have 2 kids, but this is the second one. He has a set of drums, and Jack, my husband, does not want to hear this, but I think I want to learn how to play them. And why not? We have them. I don't want to sell them. I want to learn how to play drums. That would be fun, because I love music. So
listen, he's not going to like this, but I vote that you learn. I think that sounds really fun.
I'm going to send you a recording. Oh my gosh, Kim. I'm going to jinx myself. Married for 28 years, divorced for the drums lessons.
It was all great until the drums.
Until the drums. I know.
I have this theory where, there was that old saying that you are made up of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And I like to think that there's an updated version of that, which is you are the sum of the 5 people that you also interact with online, because so much of our world has also moved digitally. So I'm curious and it doesn't have to be, humans, it could be brands like Peloton or something like that. But what are some like brands or humans or, I don't know, art accounts or something that you follow, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter or another platform that you really just feel like, it lights me up, or every time I see their content, I have a smile on my face?
Sure. I like to listen to and do different things. I would say Shankar Vedantam's podcast on Hidden Brain. I listen to when I run. I love the neuroscience approach and just crazy smart and very science-based work. My undergraduate degree is in science, and I love the aspect of that sort of connecting human behavior with that. So that's a podcast I love. I always read Arianna Huffington's. I'm a little biased. She's a fellow Greek. What do you know? But she's just brilliant in the way that she's brought the whole aspect of balance and self-care and focus on sleep. And she's so damn accomplished, and putting so much energy into this says a lot about where we need to be and focused on. Read a lot of Daniel Pink's latest posts. He's gotten pretty active on LinkedIn, if you've noticed. Read a lot of, Harvard Business Review authors and articles. I'm trying to think. I live on Spotify, love making new playlists for my fitness classes. I'm actually making a resilience playlist that I'll link into my next resilience class, because music, there's a lot of research, is energizing and motivational, or changes your mood and calms you down and centers you. So kind of those are the places that I play. Does that answer your questions?
Yes, I love that. And I love the idea of a resilience playlist. You're going to have to let us
Oh, yeah.
know
You think of
as
a lot of
soon as
songs
that
that would
comes
be on
out.
there.
That is super fun. I love that. Well, this is my favorite part, which is we love homework here in this
Okay.
amazing community. We are always like you, trying to get better and stronger in our work and our lives. So if you had to give all of us a homework assignment that we had to do this week, it could be anything. It could be watch a show. It could be read this article. It could be take a fitness class. What would be the homework assignment that you would give for us this week?
If I take a fitness class or exercise, it would be too predictable for me. I want to say this week for me, it's been to ask for things you may not get. Ask to hear the self-talk if you get a no. Ask in a setting where you have the least amount of credibility or power, but you want to have your voice heard as much. Ask, because asking is really a way to become stronger in a skill of actually doing it, and then mentally in what you say to yourself as you rev up to do it. And maybe when you're told, no, you can't do that, you still asked. And maybe you don't know, maybe it results in something really, really positive. So I'll close with that. Ask.
I love that. That's like the best answer I've heard so far. That's such a good, powerful ask. And I will also say, all of these powerful gems and wisdoms that Tatiana is dropping, we are going to compile meeting notes on all of this. So I will compile meeting notes on this. We will drop those in this link. So, if you missed anything, or you're like, what was Ariana Huffington's link or whatever, don't worry. We got you. We're going to compile all of this and drop it in the meeting link so you make sure that you won't miss it. But Tatiana, if people want to keep learning from you, if they want to, stay tuned for this resilience playlist on Spotify, where's the best place that they can stay up to date on what you're doing?
Definitely LinkedIn. I would say I have several courses, a lot on communication. My colleague Brenda Bailey Hughes and I have a great popular course on listening, communication tips, communicating in times of change. I just filmed last year a course on making an authentic pitch, or striking up conversations with people you may not know. Communicating in different cultures. I'm working on one, and communicating with different cultures virtually. So LinkedIn is the place, as you know. And I just started publishing my newsletter. It's monthly, back to what are the things you do to stay sane. I haven't committed to weekly. It's not a doable thing. So monthly is a stronger communication from a newsletter standpoint. And I'll try to also follow up with some lives, but just hacks to help you be better at what you do. That's the plan.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for taking time. I will encourage everybody, if they haven't already, to press the little follow button on Tatiana's profile. Definitely press it on mine so you can get the meeting notes and stay up to date with this conversation and get the recording. But thank you so much for taking the time. And thank you everybody else for all your amazing questions and commitment to being here and making ourselves stronger. So I just want to say thanks so much.
Good. Thank you, Kim.
Have a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.